She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. In a fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know. And she's got me living in a chemical love, and I try to find the strength to know when she comes back to me again. I'm gonna come up from my hiding.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. Today we're talking about the case of 27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jillian Kelly from Hugoton, Kansas. They went missing on March 30th, 2024. On Sunday, April 14th, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations, along with the FBI and the Texas County Sheriff's Department, recovered two deceased women in rural Texas County, which is located in Oklahoma. The bodies have been confirmed to be the missing Kansas women, and shortly after this discovery, 4 people were arrested and charged with the kidnapping and murders of Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly. These 4 people were 54-year-old Tiffany Adams, her boyfriend, 43-year-old Tadbert Cullum, and a married couple, 50-year-old Cole Earl Twombly and 44-year-old Cora Twombly. Reportedly, all 4 of these individuals were part of an anti-government religious group called God's Misfits, and one of the suspects knew Veronica Butler, one of the victims, very well. We're going to talk about this and what law enforcement discovered during the investigation, but first, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Day One. I have found myself doing a lot more introspection lately and a lot more writing, because when you're looking deep inside, you figure things out about yourself and the world that you don't ever want to forget again. And writing about your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors can help you identify patterns in your life that may not be serving you. Day One is the #1 journaling app on the Apple App Store and gives both seasoned and rookie journalers a ton of great features that makes journaling easy and helpful no matter what season of life you're in. Some people use a journal to write down their private and personal thoughts, like me. Some people like to keep a log of their life, their travel or fitness journeys. No matter what you use a journal for, Day One helps keep your information in an organized and secure place, thanks to their user-friendly UI and end-to-end encryption. And I love using Day One because I usually journal with a pen and paper, but I have so much to say as of late that using my laptop or desktop is easier because I can type so much faster than I can write. But even if I was just using the Day One app on my phone for a quick update, the Day One Premium plan offers unlimited voice-to-text transcription to save my hand from cramping and to allow my brain to freestyle a little bit more. I actually find that I get the best entries when I do it this way because I'm just sort of talking out loud, a stream of consciousness, and there's a lot of insight to be found there. Day One Premium is also going to give you the opportunity to add a little pizzazz to your journal with unlimited photos, unlimited videos, unlimited audio recordings, and unlimited drawings. If you can draw, unlike me, I can't draw. You know, I can sing, I can dance, I can write. I can't draw. Nothing artistic. Stick figures I struggle with, but there are tons of stick figures drawn in my Day One journal, so I am using the feature. I'm using it. But for me, security is my main priority because I've been in a position where someone crossed every boundary I had, including reading all of my paper journals. So not only does Day One use end-to-end encryption, but they allow you to lock your journal with a password and biometric security. And if you want to make journaling a daily habit on your road to self-improvement, but sometimes you're just lacking the inspiration or mental capacity to think of something to write about, Day One offers personalized prompts and templates to help get your juices flowing. Actually, I have a prompt for you that I used last week because I've been having a hard time centering, and my therapist told me to meditate and go to my happy place, and for the life of me, I could not think of a happy place to go to. So I decided to turn to my Day One journal and write it out. And I did eventually find a happy place. Hopefully that happy place gets happier as time goes on, but it's a start. It's a foundation. So the prompt for you is, if you were told to go to your happy place, where would it be? What would it look like? What would it feel like? How would you feel while being there? Let me know in the comments. And I invite you all to try Day One Journal for yourselves today. All you have to do is go to dayoneapp.com/stephanieharlowe and use code stephanieharlowe to unlock a limited time offer of a 2-month free trial of Day One Premium. That's DAYONE app.com/stephanieharlowe so you can see why Day One is the #1 journaling app out there. One more time, that's DAYONE, dayoneapp.com/stephanieharlowe. There's an E on the end of Stephanie and Harlowe. Check Day One Journal out for yourself. Thank you so much to Day One for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. On the morning of March 30th, 2024, Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly drove from Hugoton, Kansas to Eva, Oklahoma, with the intention of meeting a woman named Tiffany Adams. Adams is the paternal grandmother of Veronica's 2 children, ages 6 and 8, and Veronica at that time was embroiled in a long and arduous custody battle with Tiffany Adams' son, Wrangler Rickman. We're going to talk about his name in a second. A few minutes. Wrangler Rickman. Rickman did have primary custody of the 2 children, but a court order had given Veronica supervised visits with her son and daughter every Saturday. On this specific Saturday, Jillian Kelly was Veronica's court-authorized choice to supervise these visits, and the 2 women were acquaintances who had known each other from going to the same church, which was Willow Christian Church, and that is where Jillian's husband, Heath Kelly, was the minister. Now, it looks as if Veronica and Jillian were not super close. They weren't best friends or anything. They just sort of knew each other through the church community and through living in the same area. But Jillian had offered to help out since the usual supervisor for these visits was apparently unavailable that day. Her name is Cheryl Brune. We're going to come back to her. But Veronica was planning to bring her 2 children to a birthday party, so she obviously still wanted to have this supervised visit that day, and so she had to bring in one of her other court-authorized supervisors, and I believe that Veronica was allotted 3, and one would be Cheryl, one would be Jillian, and I'm not sure who the third person was, but either way, as long as one of those 3 people was available, she would have no problem with these supervised visits. But then Veronica and her children did not show up at this birthday party. And that's when family members Melissa and Joey Padilla went looking for Veronica, and they found her vehicle abandoned on the side of the road near Highway 95 and Road L, which is south of Elkhart, Oklahoma. This was roughly 5 miles from the agreed-upon meetup location, which would have been at the intersection of Highway 95 and US 64 West in Texas County, and this place is known as Four Corners, I'm sure because 4 roads meet up to intersect, creating 4 corners. Now, I'm not sure if this was usually the place where Veronica would get her children from Tiffany Adams, but this was the place that Tiffany Adams had instructed Veronica to meet her that day.
Down at the end of this dirt road is Highway 95. We are on Road L, and you can see we're a pretty good distance in. And right down here, we have found a stick with yellow ribbons and flowers, and right over there on that telephone pole is a white cross with yellow flowers and ribbons and the women's name written on that cross. The question here remains, why are we so far down off of this road? What happened that day when they were driving on Highway 95?
When Veronica's car was located, her family members called police around 12:07 p.m. And when law enforcement arrived, they not only found evidence of foul play, but also evidence that one or more people had sustained a serious injury because blood was found on the road and at the edge of the roadway, and Veronica's glasses were located on the road south of the car near a broken hammer. Additionally, a pistol magazine had been found inside of Jillian Kelly's purse, which was still at the scene, but no corresponding pistol had been recovered.
Deputies immediately responded to the area. When they arrived on scene, they found some things that just weren't adding up, so we established a crime scene and then notified the OSBI to have them come and assist us with this and to actually take lead on the case. All right. We established a search party made up of the Guyman Fire Department and several of the volunteer fire departments in the county. And we searched the area around the crime scene for about a mile in each direction. There was a lot of questions from the public as was there any danger to the public? And I think from the get-go, once we arrived on scene, that and we gained a little bit of information that we felt this wasn't a random deal. All right, we felt that with some of the information coming in that it was more targeted, and we started to look in those areas that we were pointed to.
Investigators began speaking to people who knew the missing women, and one of these people was Tiffany Adams, who told the police that her grandchildren had spent the night with family friends, Barrett and Lacey Cook, and she'd been planning to pick them up the morning of the 30th so that she could deliver them to Veronica. However, when Adams called Veronica that morning at 9 a.m. to confirm, she claimed that Veronica told her something had come up and she wouldn't be able to pick up the kids that day. As it turns out, the custody battle with these two children wasn't necessarily or specifically narrowed down to being between Veronica Butler and her ex, Wrangler Rickman. That's not a real name, is it? Wrangler Rickman, he was not born Wrangler Rickman, was he? It is a cool name, but definitely it feels like it's somebody who should be in like a Levi's commercial or, a Calvin Klein, like blue jean ad. Wrangler Rickman. I'm Wrangler Rickman, and I endorse this denim. Right? It's a cool name, but it's not real. Is it real? But anyways, the main point of contention wasn't between Veronica Butler and Wrangler Rickman, at least from the court documents. It appeared that the person really fighting to keep the kids away from Veronica was Wrangler's mother, Tiffany Adams. The custody battle began in February of 2019, at which time Rickman had been given custody and Veronica had gotten her Saturday supervised visits. I tried to find what exactly happened where that would have been the arrangement, because if Wrangler Rickman got full custody and Veronica was only allowed to see her children one day a week and those visits had to be supervised, something must have happened to have given the judge cause to feel that Veronica may not have been a safe person for her children to be around. I'm not sure exactly what happened, and I'm sure more information will come out as time goes on, but this is still a developing case. And that could be an assumption from me, just based on the context clues, though. Typically, custody is going to be 50-50 unless there's some extenuating circumstances. But throughout the following years, after 2019, when that decision was made, there were many more hearings and many court appearances, and court documents stated that more motions were filed on March 18th and March 20th of 2024, where Veronica was asking for custody of her two children as their father, Wrangler Rickman, had been ordered to complete 6 months of inpatient drug and alcohol rehab after being released from jail on a conviction for possessing a firearm after a former felony.
Now, in court documents, we learned that Veronica had accused Tiffany Adams, this grandmother, of essentially kidnapping her kids. A lot of you keep asking me, what is this habeas corpus? That is Latin. You have the body. It is a federal demand to produce somebody, in this case, the children. Counsel, thank you very much for joining us.
What I do know is that Veronica was a lovely lady. She was what you want in a client, absolutely. She was organized, diligent. She made my job a heck of a lot easier. She brought me 4 expanda files of information the first time I met her. That was all stickied and tallied, ready to go for me. She was extremely respectful. Just like I say, everything you want in a client and a person. She absolutely loved her children, and that was the goal, was absolutely to get her more time and then to be on the path to regain custody. That was our plan for sure.
Did Veronica have any kind of sense of what she was up against in this dispute?
And I was only retained in September of last year, so it's not as if I was in the case from the very beginning. But from my review of the court file, I mean, this was a very contentious matter from the very get-go. I mean, there were numerous hearings. The filing takes quite a while to scroll through the bottom to the bottom,
right.
And so it was a very serious matter, very very contentious matter from the very beginning.
The OSBI, which is the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations, they've confirmed that Wrangler Rickman checked into a treatment facility on March 22nd. And this is why I'm even more sure that there's something going on or something happened with Veronica to allow Wrangler Rickman to take primary custody of these children, because it looks like he has, prior criminal history. So if he had prior criminal history and he was still granted custody of the kids over Veronica, something went down. And I am interested to know what. So Veronica files these new motions, right, at the end of March, like the third week in March. And basically she's saying, well, I think that I can take custody of my kids now, considering their father is going to be locked up in a rehab facility for the next half of the year. And shouldn't the kids be with their mother if they can't be with their father, which, is a fair statement. So a hearing to rule on Veronica's motions was scheduled for April 17th, and her attorney told the OSBI that his client was likely to receive custody of her children at the hearing, with their biological father of the children being out of the picture for 6 months. But, of course, Veronica was nowhere to be found when April 17th came and went, because she went missing at the end of March. Convenient timing? Maybe. And even though Wrangler Rickman had already been awarded custody, reportedly his own mother, Tiffany Adams, would often refuse to let her own son see his children at times. Apparently, Wrangler Rickman had been making statements to this effect on social media, and the probable cause affidavit in this case states that law enforcement had responded to a call previous to Veronica going missing, where Tiffany Adams would not give her grandchildren to their father, her son. And the police officer who responded reportedly told Rickman that he believed the two children were better off in Adams' care, which is crazy, actually, because police don't usually pop in with their opinions like that. They don't, unless something very drastic is happening. They usually don't give their opinion one way or the other, and they kind of just let the courts handle it, and they tell you to, get a lawyer, go to the courts, deal with this custody issue. It is strange that with Wrangler Rickman being awarded full custody and with his mother, Tiffany Adams, not allowing his children to go with him, and the police showing up and saying, yeah, we agree with you, even though that was not the set out custody arrangement. Once again, something extreme must have happened to make the police feel that they would be so bold to go against a court-ordered custody agreement and keep two children from their father. Additionally, previous child custody case recordings were obtained by investigators in which Wrangler Rickman allegedly discusses death threats made by his mother and her boyfriend, 43-year-old Tad Burt Cullum. According to Rickman's grandmother, Debbie Knox Davis, her grandson had told her in February that they didn't have to worry about the custody battle any longer because his mother, Tiffany Adams, had it under control. He's also alleged to have told his grandmother, Knox Davis, that his mother knew the path the judge walked to work. And he said something along the lines of, "We will take out Veronica at drop-off." Now, of course, Wrangler Rickman denies having these conversations at all. Police also spoke to Cheryl Brune, who, if you remember, is the woman that would usually accompany Veronica Butler to the supervised visits with her children on Saturdays. Now, according to Cheryl, she had not necessarily been available on March 30th. She said she'd been asked by Tiffany Adams to take 2 weeks off. Brune said that Adams had asked her to do this so that she, Tiffany Adams, could question the kids about how their supervised visits with their mother were going. So now law enforcement has good reason to believe that Tiffany Adams may have been involved with the disappearance of Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly. It seems she may have also had a motive to prevent Veronica from making it to that April court date, because a judge might very well decide that Wrangler Rickman, in a 6-month rehab program, was not the best parent to take care of his children at that time. And the judge would probably decide that the two children should be placed with their mother and not their grandmother. On April 1st, OSBI agents obtained a search warrant for Tiffany Adams' cell phone, and they extracted the data, finding web searches for taser pain level, gun shops, prepaid cellular phones, and how to get someone out of their house. Investigators then discovered that Adams had purchased 5 stun guns on March 23rd in Guyman. The 23rd was the day after Wrangler Rickman checked into his rehab facility. Tiffany Adams had also purchased 3 prepaid cell phones from Walmart on February 13th, and OSBI agents identified the numbers associated with these 3 phones, finding that all of them had been in the area where Veronica Butler's car was found abandoned, as well as Butler and Kelly's last known location. The affidavit claims that the phones were powered on and able to access the cellular network for the first time at or near Tadbert Cullum's home 3 times before March 30th, and the phones had also been turned on near the home of Cole and Cora Twombly. And we're going to talk about these 2 in a minute, the Twombleys. So Veronica was supposed to have been meeting Tiffany Adams at 10 a.m. on March 30th, and neither Veronica or Jillian's cell phones were found at the abandoned car, but they had been actively sending signals to their cellular carriers until 9:42 a.m., when the signals abruptly stopped. The last contact Veronica had on her cell phone was a 9 a.m. call with Tiffany Adams. And remember, this corroborates what Adams had already told the police. She said that she'd called Veronica at 9 a.m. on the morning of the 30th to just make sure, Veronica knew what time she had to be there, knew where she was supposed to be. And Veronica was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Tiffany. Something came up. I'm not going to be able to pick up my kids today." However, cell phone records show that when Veronica spoke to Tiffany Adams on the phone, she'd already left her home and she was picking up Jillian Kelly, which means she intended on going to the meetup point to pick up her kids. And honestly, she can only see her kids once a week. I doubt she's going to have something come up on that one day that she gets to see her children. So between 10:16 a.m. and 10:35 a.m. that morning, law enforcement determined that the 3 prepaid cell phones had traveled to an area about 8 miles from where Veronica's car was found. And in a pasture below a dam, detectives found evidence that someone had been doing recent dirt work. Now, I didn't know what dirt work was. Sometimes I feel like I don't even live in this world because I see these terms that I'm researching for videos. And I'm like, what does that mean? I've never heard that in my life. Dirt work. I didn't know what it was. I had to look it up. And according to Landrum Resources, dirt work is the unsung hero of land development and is essential for various projects from landscaping to construction. It involves soil manipulation to create a suitable foundation for building projects. And this can mean excavation, grading, etc. So I guess it's just moving dirt around and leveling the area so you can build something there, to put it plainly. The affidavit states that some concrete had been moved from an area about 200 yards below the dam, and then the police found a hole that had been dug before being filled back in and covered with hay. Now, this property was owned by a man named Jamie Beasley, and he told law enforcement that the dirt work on his property had been done by Tad Cullum using a skid steer on March 29th, the day before Veronica and Jillian went missing. Beasley had assumed that Cullum had finished by the following morning because he'd left his skid steer on the property overnight, and then when Beasley woke up the following day around noon, it was gone. Police were informed by Beasley that Tad Cullum rents that pasture property and he can access it at any time. Cullum had asked Jamie Beasley on March 28th if he could cut a tree down, remove a stump, bury some concrete, and do dirt work where the concrete pile was below the dam. And of course, Beasley was like, "Yeah, whatever, dude, you're renting the property, you can do whatever you want, have fun." Now, at the time of this conversation, before Jillian and Veronica went missing, Tiffany Adams was with Tad Cullum. So Beasley also told police that on Sunday, March 31st, Cullum had come over in the morning and told him that people were looking at him when it came to the disappearances of Veronica and Jillian. And Tadbert Cullum told Jamie Beasley, "Listen, I don't want the police or anyone else who's suspicious to cause problems for you, the landowner. But all the skid steer tracks on your property without a skid steer accompanying them, that does kind of look bad." So Jamie Beasley told Tadbert Cullum that if anyone asked, he would tell them that Cullum had done tree and dirt work for him, which, is what Beasley thought Tadbert Cullum was doing. But to show up the day after these 2 women go missing and be like, "People think it was me, people think I had something to do with it, I don't want them to be suspicious of you. You might want to come up with a story to tell the police if they ask." That would make me suspicious. As if I'm Jamie Beasley, that would make me suspicious for sure. I'd be like, yo, I'm going to tell him what I know, but I'm not going to lie for you, dude, because I'm feeling you're acting suspicious right now. But apparently, Tad Burt Cullum is highly respected in his community. We're going to talk about that in a second. The arrest affidavit states that the location of the dam where the hole was dug was only about 8.5 miles away from where Veronica's car was found, and that would give a drive time from where Veronica's car was found to where that hole was dug by the dam. That would be well within the 34-minute window, which started after Veronica and Jillian's phones went dark and then ended when the prepaid cell phones started transmitting from the Beasley property. All prepaid phones stopped transmitting altogether on the morning of March 30th at locations near the Twombly residence and Beasley's property. So basically what the police are saying here is Veronica and Jillian's phones go dark at 9:42. And when the 3 prepaid cell phones started pinging at Jamie Beasley's property, that gave more than enough time for somebody to drive from where Veronica's car was found to where that hole was dug on Jamie Beasley's property. You had perfect amount of time to get there and do what you needed to do. And then, even though those prepaid cell phones had been transmitting for several days at that point, as soon as whatever happened on that morning of March 30th, those prepaid cell phones shut down and did not turn on again. And all of them shut down either near the Beasley property or near the Twombly residence, which would be Cole and Cora Twombly. And this is interesting because you've got 3 prepaid cell phones, which you expect would be in the possession of 3 or more people. And it seems like they may have been instructed, when we're done here at Jamie Beasley's property, shut down your cell phones. And some of them shut them down while they're still on the property, and some of them, possibly one of the Twomblys, didn't shut their phone down until they got back home. All of the pieces were starting to fall into place, but the best information came from the real hero of this story, and this is someone identified in the affidavit as CW. CW is the 16-year-old daughter of Cora and Cole Twombly. Now, these are initials. The W is not a T like Twombly because it looks like the 16-year-old has a different father. So Cora Twombly's her mother. Cole Twombly is not her biological father. That would be her stepfather. And I don't know what Cole and Cora Twombly did to this 16-year-old girl, but there was no ride or die happening here. This teenager was like, what do you want to know, to the cops when they came to talk to her. She was like, I've got the tea. I'll spill all of it. It's piping hot. What do you want to know? Which is crazy, because I'm over here like, damn, I hope none of my kids would ever send me to prison for life. But what did you do to her, Cora and Cole? What did you do? So CW, Cora Twombly's 16-year-old daughter, she was interviewed by OSBI agents on April 3rd, and she told police that she'd overheard group conversations related to Veronica Butler not protecting her children from alleged abuse at the hands of Veronica's brother. Now, once again, I just don't know enough details or at least specifics about the personal lives of these people. So I couldn't tell you if there was any legitimate concern about abuse from Veronica's brother towards Veronica's 2 children. I couldn't tell you if there was any evidence or proof of it, if he had a history of it. It looks like this was accused sexual abuse. This could just be a tactic that people use during custody battles. Derek and I covered the Piketon massacre on Crime Weekly, and the Wagner family, Jake Wagner's family, had accused the Roden family of doing something similar to Jake's very young daughter, Sophia. But there doesn't appear to be any evidence that happened. It was just a tactic to try and convince a judge in courts that Sophia was better off with the Wagners than she was with the Rodens. So I don't know if there's any proof or truth to this. I'm not saying that there's not. I'm just saying that CW, the 16-year-old girl, heard group conversations, meaning her mother, her stepfather, and their friends or their cult or their group, their meeting group, whatever you want to call them. She'd overheard them talking about how Veronica wasn't a responsible parent for her children because she wasn't protecting them from her brother. And CW said she'd been told that her mother, stepfather, and their friends, Tiffany Adams and Tad Cullum, along with a fifth individual, were responsible for the disappearance of the two missing women. Tiffany Adams had provided Cole and Cora Twombly with burner phones so that they could communicate without using their personal devices, and CW said she'd seen 2 burner phones charging in her mother's bedroom. CW also informed investigators that all of these individuals were part of an anti-government group called God's Misfits, and they would meet every week at the home of the Twombleys or at the home of Barrett and Lacey Cook. And if you remember, Barrett and Lacey Cook were the couple that Veronica's 2 children allegedly spent the night with on the evening of March 29th. On March 29th, CW was told by Cora that she and Cole would not be home the following morning as they were going out on a mission. The next day, March 30th, CW woke up around 10 a.m. Cora and Cole were not home, but they returned home around noon, driving a blue and gray Chevy pickup truck owned by a man named Clint Twombly, who I can only assume is related to Cole Twombly, right? And they apparently like their C's. Cora, Cole, Clint, they like their C's. I can't really judge. My parents named me and my siblings all S names, so. And really, they paid for it in the end because my mom still can't get our names right on the first try. She's got to go through all 3. And then if she says the right one, we'll be like, present, you know? So when Cora and Cole got back, they instructed CW to clean out the interior of Clint Twombly's truck. And when CW asked her mother what had happened, Cora responded that things had not gone as planned, but that they would never have to worry about Veronica Butler again. Cora said that she and Cole had blocked the road to prevent Veronica from taking her normal route and instead diverted her to where Tiffany Adams, Tad Cullum, and another individual were waiting. When CW asked Cora why Jillian Kelly also had to die, Cora responded that she wasn't innocent either because Jillian had supported Veronica. Now, CW asked if their bodies had been put in a well, and Cora responded something like that. And apparently, this was not the first time the group had tried to kill Veronica Butler because CW told investigators that in February of 2024, Adams and her group went out to Hugoton to take Veronica out, but their target didn't leave her house, which is consistent with the web searches made on Tiffany Adams' phone, how to get someone to leave their house. So I'm not sure what Tiffany Adams did, what kind of ploys or tactics she used to try and get Veronica to walk out and leave the house, but Veronica didn't fall for it. Maybe she sensed danger. I don't know. Maybe the tactics weren't that good and the Google search failed, but Veronica did not leave her house that day. And according to Cora Twombly, the plan had been to throw an anvil through Veronica's windshield as she drove to make her death look like an accident, since apparently it's pretty common for anvils to fall off work vehicles. I mean, that would look like an accident. Like, I can totally see how the police might show up and find, this car accident, and then there's an anvil through the windshield, and they'll be like, ugh, this clearly was an accident. But I just don't know how common it is. It might be. I could be totally off base. Hey, I didn't know what dirt work was. The anvil automobile accident situation might be happening several times a day, every day. I just have never heard of it happening, outside of movies like Final Destination. I've never heard of it happening, and I'm sure it's happened, but is it that common that would be your murder plan? Like, oh, anvils fall off of trucks every day. That's a perfect way to commit this crime and cover it up and make it look like an accident. Like, that wouldn't be immediately where my brain went if I'm thinking of an accident. I might think of like, oh, a flat tire, and then they, veer off the road and drive into a tree or something, or anything else. Okay, but an anvil through the windshield, that's what they went with. The arrest affidavit states, quote, while in Carrick, Texas, interviewing CW and her brother, Cora and Cole arrived and tried to get access to CW and her brother. Cora was verbally aggressive and was very upset with their affiant that she was not granted access to CW and her brother. Cole exited the vehicle armed with a handgun in a holster on his belt, end quote. Now, as uncommon as I believe an anvil flying through your windshield and killing you is, Cole Twombly getting out of his truck, during the course of a police interview And wearing a handgun in a holster on his belt, not uncommon. This is Oklahoma. I believe they have a permitless law, which allows anybody over the age of 18 or 21 to basically carry a gun whenever they want, wherever they want. So I just looked it up, and it's 21. You have to be 21. But if you're 21, it's pretty much a free-for-all, as far as I can tell. There's no permit required to purchase rifles and shotguns or handguns. There's no registration required for any firearms, rifles, shotguns, handguns. There's no license that you need to own a rifle, a shotgun, a handgun, and you don't need a permit to carry a rifle, a shotgun, or a handgun. So it's pretty much just, it's the Wild West, you know? It's the Oklahoma Panhandle. There's no rules, there's no boundaries. Just everyone's a cowboy. So that's not super uncommon, and it definitely doesn't surprise me, because at first when I read it, I was like, man, he's got some balls strolling up to a police interview wearing a gun in his belt. Like, that's clear intimidation and threatening behavior. And then I was like, wait, where is this? Oklahoma? Never mind. Pretty normal. So obviously Cole and Cora did not want the 16-year-old CW talking to the police. But it's like, why did you so freely, so openly, so shamelessly discuss your plans to kidnap and murder two women in front of this teenage girl? Like, why did you think her loyalty to you would be so extreme, so undying, that when faced with real authority figures, the police, and asked what happened, that she would lie for you? Why did you think she would protect you? Or did they think that nobody would ever look at them or consider that they were suspects in this? Which is crazy, because Tiffany Adams was the last person who was supposed to see Veronica and Jillian alive. And then all of a sudden she had this like weird excuse that Veronica told her she couldn't show up. But there was evidence and proof that Veronica had left her house, that Veronica had picked up Jillian. And even if the police hadn't gotten the cell phone pings, they would have gone to Jillian's house, interviewed her husband, and he would have been like, yeah, Veronica came and picked up my wife so they could go and get her kids. And so it would have come back to Tiffany Adams at the end of the day, regardless. And it's like, did she not think that far ahead? And something that Derek always says to me on Crime Weekly when I say this stuff, because it always just blows my mind. Like, I literally cannot place myself in the shoes of a person who says to themselves, I'm going to commit multiple felonies. I'm going to take the lives of one or more people. And I'm definitely not going to think about every possible outcome that could happen. I'm definitely not going to, turn on the apocalypse machine in my brain and think about every single bad thing that could go wrong with this and how it could lead back to me and how it could literally ruin my life. This is why I can never commit a crime, because my brain won't let me. Because my brain is not the hopeful type where it's like, this is all going to be okay. This is all going to work out for you. It's usually the type to just start churning a hurricane of worst case scenarios. But it looks like Tiffany Adams and her, twisted crew of little psychopaths didn't really ever consider the possible implications of what would happen if they were suspected or got caught. And they were just like, yeah, let's talk openly about this. Like, we've done nothing wrong. It shows a huge lack of self-awareness. It shows a lot of ego, a lot of hubris, a lot of, I guess, just kind of thinking that you're above the law, that the rules don't apply to you. So on April 13th, these 4 arrests were made: Cole, Cora Twombly, and then Tadbert Cullum and Tiffany Adams. And the following day, during a press conference, the world found out that the bodies of the 2 women, Veronica and Jillian, had been found and identified.
This morning, the FBI confirming the deaths of 2 Kansas moms after their bodies were found in rural Oklahoma.
We're probably talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 law enforcement officers. Truly, no exaggeration, working night and day for 15 days.
27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jillian Kelly disappeared over 2 weeks ago. Now 4 suspects in their deaths arrested. Tad Cullum, Tiffany Adams, and Cole and Cora Twombly charged with 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder.
The 4 suspects would make their first court appearance on April 17th, at which time they were denied bail. Now, family members of the 2 victims were present and obviously angry, and it became a whole very tense, dramatic situation. People in the gallery, family members of Veronica and Jillian were yelling at the four suspects as they were led in, and tensions were high.
Jason, grief, tears, even confusion filled the courtroom today. I watched family members of Jillian and Veronica come inside, hug each other, hug deputies, and weep inside of the courtroom. The father of Veronica physically had to be restrained as each of the suspects walked through the door. I even heard the bailiff whisper to him, please, to get him to try to sit down and calm down. He wasn't loud, but it just gives you an indication of the emotion that was being felt inside of that courtroom. And we couldn't have our cameras rolling inside of the courtroom. All four suspects are being held without bond, citing proof of evidence or presumption of guilt is great. Their attorneys will have a chance to challenge that. Cole, Tad, Tiffany all said that they can hire their own attorney. Cora is the only one who said she cannot afford to hire an attorney, and that means that the state will provide one for her. We talked to family for the first time today. Veronica's aunt said she is confused as to how this happened.
How can you hate the mother of your grandchildren so much that you want to end her life?
And reportedly, during an interview with police, Tiffany Adams has confessed to the murders. Apparently, things had been very bad between Veronica and Tiffany Adams for a long time, but a judge had not granted Veronica an order of protection against Adams, even though she had tried to get it multiple times for things like harassment, the typical stuff that's going to happen in these kinds of situations, divorce, custody, when one or more of the parties is not maybe mentally well, maybe has a personality disorder, maybe just doesn't have a super tight grip on reality. And I do understand that when kids are involved, and if the parties involved truly want to protect the children and they think that the other party is less likely to do so, and that the kids would be better off with one person over another, yeah, there's going to be aggression. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be some, maybe below the bar tactics used. And then everyone's going to justify it within their bad behavior to say it's to protect the children, when honestly, it just ends up hurting the children far more. But Veronica had tried to get a restraining order against Tiffany Adams. She had tried to enlist the help of law enforcement and the court system to keep her safe, and they failed to. And obviously, Veronica's family is not really too pleased about that.
Motion to hold Adams and the three other suspects without bond. Investigators wrote, after Adams was arrested, she, quote, made statements to law enforcement indicating she was responsible for the deaths of Butler and Kelly. The documents do not reveal what those statements entailed. Adams, Tad Cullum, and Cole and Cora Twombly were in court for their first appearance today. They are each charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. A judge denied all of them bond. It's something prosecutors pushed for. In court documents, they said, quote, now faced with the consequences of a sentence of death or life in prison, the defendants would be willing to do anything since they have shown to be willing to commit capital murder in order to limit Veronica's visitation. Prosecutors say there were many attempts made to take Veronica's life. Other court documents show the years of turmoil between Veronica and Tiffany, but efforts to secure a protection order did not get approved by a judge.
Do you feel like the justice system failed Veronica?
They 100%.
Has it always been like this with Tiffany?
In the last 5 years, 100%, they have failed.
What would you say to the justice system?
They don't want to know. I'm going to have to get off here, sorry.
Well, the maximum sentence for murder is death, life or life without parole. Julia Thatcher asked the district attorney if the death penalty is on the table. He told her that will be decided later.
And there's more drama, right? Because evidently, Tiffany Adams and her boyfriend, Tad Cullum, were actually pretty respected in their community. Tiffany Adams has ties to the Oklahoma Republican Party, and she'd been elected last year as the chair for the Cimarron County GOP. Now, State Senator Nathan Dahm, the chairman of the Oklahoma GOP, stated that the Oklahoma Republican Party has no relationship with Tiffany Adams or anyone else involved in the crime, but they were aware of Adams' role. He said, quote, "This is a tragic situation with innocent children being at the center of this still developing situation. While we at the Oklahoma Republican Party have no personal relationship or knowledge of the individuals who have been accused of this senseless crime, we have been made aware that Miss Adams was previously elected by a handful of people to the role of chair in her county," end quote. I like how he tries to minimize it, right? He's like, it was a handful of people, man. You know, nobody else tried to get the role or the position. There was like 6 people at the meeting. They all knew her, and they were like, yeah, we'll vote you in. It was a handful of people, okay? She does not represent us. We do not know her. Additionally, there's a guy. His name is Vincent Forbes. He's a local municipal court judge, and he was friends and business partners with Tad Cullum. So this guy told News Nation that he was shocked, right? Vincent Forbes was shocked by what had happened. He claimed he had been in regular contact with Tad Burt Cullum and had even been with him at his house when the police showed up with a warrant to search the home.
Really crazy, and goes back to the point that people here are very scared to talk. But yes, we talked to the municipal judge here, happened to be walking by, got in the car with me and chatted. He is a good friend of Tad. He is a business associate. They were working together. He was at Tad's house when the SWAT team showed up. You remember Nancy Lou had that crazy video. The SWAT team showed up, and he was there. He had a gun pointed at his face, he says. And he also knows a little bit about this group, the God's Misfits, the religious cult group. I asked the judge about it. Listen to what he told me, Ashley.
When's the last time you saw Tad?
I was there when they raided it.
You were there?
Tad and I have been working together the last month in a business, and I was down there when it was raided.
What was that like?
Being with a military past in Vietnam, it brought back some really bad memories. Looking down the barrel of those rifles, it was very hard for me. It brought back a lot of memories, a lot of bad things.
Did you ever get a bad vibe from Tad?
No. Tad was one of the nicest, funniest. I seen him almost on a daily basis this last month. We were working together. I couldn't even believe he was involved in it.
What about Tiffany?
I didn't see her a lot. I've known her for years. Always thought she was just a little bit out in left field, but again, just never believed that they would do this kind of thing.
According to the affidavit, they were involved in this group, God's Misfits.
Yes.
What do you know about that?
Never even heard of it until this come up. Knew zero, nothing about it.
And what have you learned?
To me, and what I've heard, and I can't say this for fact, what I've heard, it's kind of like a cult. A lot of cults use God as their background to justify what they're doing. To me, that's what it sounds like.
Are they anti-government?
Very, very anti-government.
And then after speaking his mind on News Nation, and basically, I don't think he said anything too wrong. It's the same thing that anybody would say if, news reporters were in a neighborhood and they pulled a neighbor and they're like, what do you think about this? And the neighbor would be like, we mowed our lawns together every Saturday and we always waved at each other when we got the paper in the morning. He seemed like a nice guy. This is crazy. I don't think he said anything that bad, but he did that interview with News Nation, and then Vincent Forbes was asked to resign.
Okay, so in a very strange twist, Ashley, I just was notified that judge was forced to resign after doing that interview with me this afternoon. The mayor, he was appointed by the mayor, and the mayor basically said, I'm not happy you did the interview and talked about any of this, and said, we want your resignation. And he had to submit a letter of resignation. Keep in mind, he didn't talk at all about, anything in a professional sense. He's just a municipal judge. He has nothing to do with the case at all. Just goes back to like why people are not wanting to talk around here, how powerful these suspects are. And now this judge is out of a job just for telling us that story this afternoon. Yeah, it was shocking. Judge Vincent Forbes, he's a judge here in Kansas, where we are, near where the murders happened. The court hearing and the court case is all the way in Texas County, Oklahoma. So he has nothing to do with the case. He did know one of the suspects. He spoke to us. He calls us last night and says, listen, after your interview aired, the city council forced me to resign. They were so unhappy that I spoke out about all of this. I just went back to the judge's house to find out what happened. Take a listen.
I was sitting here in the house, and I got a phone call. There was a city council meeting last night, and they said, you need to come over here. So I went over there. It's only a block. I walked over, and I went in, and they were in executive session. When it was over, 3 or 4 minutes, they called me in, sat down, and they said, we've had a lot of static about your interview, and we don't like it. The mayor has absolute control over my job. I'm appointed. He can hire me or fire me. And I said, well, just fire me. One of the councilmen popped up and said, oh, you're going to turn in your resignation. He's very nasty about it. I didn't appreciate that. And I said, that's not a problem. I'll quit.
You remember, Elizabeth, he talked to us yesterday about the cult group God's Misfits, what he had heard about them, also the fact that he knew the suspect, and apparently they weren't happy he was talking about it. It just goes to show why everyone is so nervous to talk around here. There's intimidation. The suspects were powerful. They owned thousands of acres of land. You look at their pictures, you might not realize it, but they were powerful, influential people in this area, Elizabeth.
Yeah, and all along we've been reporting, even before they made the arrests, before we discovered the bodies, there was a lot of fear around this grandmother. People just were very afraid to speak out about this family. I guess we're seeing now a little evidence of that.
Okay, actually, so in the last few days since I did the research for this case, some other stuff has come out, and it's going to bring us back to a few questions we had unanswered. Specifically, it's going to give us a little bit more information about Veronica, and it's going to give us some insight into this fifth person that we only briefly mentioned as we were going through this video. Now, this fifth person was mentioned several times, especially in CW's interview with the police. There was this fifth person there, but there was only 4 arrests, and so everybody assumed that this fifth person wasn't really involved or hadn't been involved as much as CW made it seem. But that appears to not be the case because there has been a 5th arrest made as of 17 hours ago. CBSNews.com says that Paul Grice, 31, was arrested and booked into the Texas County Jail on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree. Now, I don't know why Paul Grice was arrested so long after the first 4 were arrested, but CW did say, which was stated in the arrest affidavit, that Veronica and Jillian were headed to meet Tiffany Adams when the Twombleys blocked the road, diverting Jillian and Veronica to the area where Tiffany Adams, Tadbert Cullum, and Paul Grice were waiting. That's what the affidavit said. So I'm not sure why it took so long for him to be arrested. Maybe he said, oh, I wasn't there, because I do know that Paul Grice had initially told the police something like, I kind of knew what they were planning, but I wasn't present. But it looks like they were able to prove that he was present in order to bring these types of charges. KSNN.com reports that there was a celebration of life service planned for the beginning of May for Veronica Butler, and it says that Veronica Butler was a fiancée and a mother, so it looks like she had, gotten into a new relationship. She was engaged. She was also a certified nursing assistant, and she was attending Seward County Community College to become a surge tech. She was known for her homemade biscuits and gravy. This is very sad because whatever was going on in Veronica Butler's life that at the time in 2019 made a judge feel she should not have primary or even split custody of her children. It looks like she was sort of pulling herself out of that. I mean, it was 2019. It's been several years. She was a CNA. She was going back to school to become a surge tech, which I don't know what that is, so I'm going to look it up. A surge tech is a surgical technologist. I don't know why they just didn't say that instead of saying surge tech, because they spelled it S-U-R-G-E, like surge. But technically there's not an E in the word surgical. So I don't know. But either way, I will say, this is a good job from what I can tell, because some of the first search results I'm getting are talking about how the salary going from being like a nurse to a surgical technician is a huge bump in salary. So she was trying to do better for herself. She was trying to do better for her children. And it's very sad that this happened, all because she simply wanted access to her children. She wanted to be a mother and she wanted to raise her kids. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about this anti-government group, God's Misfits. There's not a ton we know about them because it doesn't appear that this was like a nationally known group. This wasn't a kind of group that had many chapters across the country, as far as I can tell. It kind of seemed like it was just a bunch of ignorant people in this Oklahoma area that got together and had meetings and, called themselves God's Misfits because they thought it sounded cool. So the Oklahoman posted an article saying that these people, the 5 people who got arrested at least, they seem to be bound together by their hatred of the government and their twisted interpretation of faith. And the article says, quote, Cole Twombly seemed to be the most outspoken, at least on social media, and his posts went right up to April 12th when he described celebrating his 50th birthday. In addition to ranch life, he posted or reposted on Facebook about Cliven Bundy and his bloody standoff with federal agents over grazing rights, passed along an Ayn Rand quote about it being impossible for innocent men to live without breaking government laws, and an odd and chilling post about a toy made to resemble the armored killdozer that Marvin Heyemeyer used to level City Hall and other structures in 2004 at Granby, Colorado. There's also a lot of hateful stuff that is anti-vax, anti-LGBTQ+, and anti-liberal. Quote, everyone seems to be talking about the weaponization of the FBI from the raid at Mar-a-Lago to the pro-life activist being swatted in Pennsylvania in front of his screaming children. Cole Twombly says in one post, the FBI doesn't even possess a congressional charter to exist, so why do governors have to allow them in their states? On October 5th, he thanked the Keys community and the Misfits for a prayer meeting that night at a park. Keys is claimed for the Almighty God through Jesus' name, he posted. Nothing can stop what is coming, in all caps. It appears God's Misfits have beliefs similar to the sovereign citizen movement mixed with QAnon conspiracies, although I couldn't find a coherent ideology on Cole Twombly's page. So-called sovereign citizens believe a number of wacko things, including that they can ignore laws and court orders because they have freed themselves from an illegitimate and oppressive government. But that didn't stop the Misfits from accepting government farm subsidies. The EWG Farm Subsidy Database indicates that Tiffany Adams took at least $134,000 in subsidies since 2013. She took $2,828 in crop rotation payments in October of 2023, according to the USDA. Last year, she's even elected chair of the Cimarron County GOP, according to state officials. They have been engaged in this kind of political hate-mongering and misinformation that has driven our country to the end of political catastrophe, if Cole Twombly's Facebook page is any indication. This does not mean that everyone who subscribes to right-wing conspiracy theories or is QAnon curious is prone to violence, but violence, especially armed resistance to authority, is fundamental to this kind of political extremism. And I agree there. Obviously, it would be irresponsible to say that every person who is conservative or Republican would be capable of doing this or would subscribe to these extreme beliefs. And as far as QAnon conspiracies go, I mean, yes, in the past few years, they've gotten crazy and out of hand. But I mean, I've been interested in some conspiracy theories that turned out to be, part of the QAnon sort of guidebook. Because when I was interested in those conspiracy theories, I didn't even know what QAnon was. It was just these conspiracy theories were interesting. I think conspiracy theories in general are interesting, and they're kind of like a puzzle, but I just don't take them too seriously. Conspiracy theories are a fun thing and shouldn't be something you base your life on, or base your behavior on, or base your mindset on. So what it seems like God's Misfits were is kind of less QAnon and more sort of like I would say libertarian, but very extreme libertarian, more like an anarchist. But even anarchists, I don't believe would do something like this, right? People who just believe that the government have too many restrictions, people who believe that taxes are theft, I mean, kind of. Taxes are kind of theft, if you ask me, like the way that they've gone is kind of out of control, let's be honest. But in general, there's a lot of people who feel these things and they do not go out and commit kidnapping and murder of 2 women in order to have a custody battle go their way. So it's very interesting that this kind of political or religious extremism, and we talk about religious extremism all the time. We spent all month basically talking about Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt, that it can cause people to truly have this entitlement where they feel they're protected by God or by their God-given rights or by just the fact that they're alive, so they should be entitled to do certain things and nobody should be able to tell them that they can't. That's the kind of, like I said, entitlement that leads people to do things and think they're going to get away with it because they think what they did was right. So in their heads, they're like, what I'm doing is right. It's justified. The ends justifies the means kind of thing. This Oklahoman article goes on to say whether the misfits are guilty of murder or not, they seem to have embraced some of the 7 deadly sins, including pride and wrath, and broken more than a few commandments. This while publicly extolling the virtues of American rural life and proclaiming their faith in God. And once again, American rural life and having faith in God, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. It's like, what do you do with that stuff? What actions do you do? What do you put out in the world? Is what you put out into the world good or bad? If what you put out into the world is bad and you're over here going to church every Sunday and lecturing other people on how to be good and holy and do the right thing, then you're a hypocrite and you're a bad person, But if you're out there just farming, feeding your chickens, praying to God at night before you go to bed and asking for guidance from the heavens, whatever you're doing, that's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The article continues and said, we should not be afraid of what the misfits believe. We should be concerned about their delusions and their fascination with guns and resistance. People are free to think whatever they want, but one can't help but ponder to what extent the misfits' radical beliefs may have fostered violence. Did the unfounded QAnon claims about a vast pedophile ring of Satanists short-circuit their ability to reason? I am revolted by what the misfits are accused of having done. More than revolted, actually. The broken hammer, the abandoned car, the pools of blood. There's not a word for what I'm feeling. It's not hate, but it's not far from it. All that love your enemies fails me here, but not everyone. They talk a little bit about Jillian Kelly in this article too, which I'm glad because I couldn't find anything about her before besides the fact that she was married to Heath Kelly, who was a pastor. But I hate when I'm reading about a victim and this victim's a woman and the only thing I can find about her is like who she's married to or if she's a mother or a wife or what her husband does for a living. So finally, it looks like we have maybe a little information about Jillian Kelly. It says Kelly was the wife of Heath Kelly, pastor of the Hugoton First Christian Church. On the morning the women's bodies were found, a service was held at the Hugoton Church in which the congregation was asked to pray for the Kelly and Butler families and their children. The service was streamed on YouTube. This is pretty wide-reaching, said Dave Mason, who delivered a sermon. Obviously, our community is hurting and our church is hurting. He said Heath Kelly told him the day before that one of his greatest concerns is that the people who have done this crime and taken his wife from him, he's asking us to remember them in prayer. So pray for those people. It may be hard. That's the desire of your pastor. I'm a pass. I'm not going to pray for them. I'm going to pass on that. You stole a woman from her children forever. After you stole her children from her since 2019. So I'm not going to pray for them. I'm not going to pray for the God's misfits. I'm sure they think they have a really, direct line to the big guy so they can pray for themselves. Really, there still was nothing about Jillian Kelly, and I wish that I knew. I wish that I knew more about her. So that's pretty much where we're at with the case right now. We've got 5 people arrested. If you add the new arrest of Paul Grice, we have Tiffany Adams allegedly and reportedly confessing to the police. We have all of these suspects, or at least the 4 who've already been to court, held without bail. Now, the death penalty, of course, it's Oklahoma. It's always on the table. As far as I can tell, all of these suspects have been charged with the same things. They're being held without bail, and the judge said that the proof of evidence or presumption of guilt was great. And the district attorney said he hasn't decided yet if he will pursue the death penalty against the suspects. I kind of think that they should. That's just my opinion. Once again, this is just my opinion. You guys know me. I'm of the opinion that an eye for an eye. If you actively, knowingly take a life, then you have to understand that your life may be taken from you, and that knowledge can act as a deterrent for some people. And the people that it doesn't act as a deterrent for, they're clearly not right in their head, because that's a deterrent for me. I live in New York. There's no chance I'm ever going to get the death penalty, okay? But I don't want to go to prison for life. I also definitely, if I lived in a state that had the death penalty, I wouldn't want to go to the electric chair or get lethal injection. All of that sounds terrifying for me. So even though in general I'm not like a murderous person, I don't even like to kill bugs, I try not to, I think that just knowing I would be in prison for life or would have to face the death penalty would be deterrent enough for me to not commit murder. But if it's not, if that doesn't scare you a little bit, you're clearly not right. And those are the people who should get the death penalty, as far as I'm concerned. So that's where we're at now. Let me know what you think about this so far. Do you kind of agree with me? Do these people deserve the death penalty? I mean, this was premeditated. They talked openly and blatantly about it. They're using some weird ideology to, I guess, support what they did. They're accusing people randomly here and there of abuse, even though, as far as I know, that's not true and not proven. So what do you think? Are these people, should there be some sort of, I guess, leeway for them? I don't know what the circumstances would be that would give them leeway, unless they make a deal of some sort and they make a plea deal to testify against the others, and then maybe, the Twombleys testify against Tiffany Adams, or Tiffany Adams' boyfriend testifies against her, because she's the mastermind here. I mean, we kind of know that, right? It's probably Tiffany Adams and her boyfriend masterminding the whole thing and bringing their disciples in on it. But it could very well be that some of these people get a lesser sentence because they're testifying against the other. Who knows? We'll kind of keep up with it as we go along. I'm sure more is going to come out, and I'm sure there's going to be a trial, because I guarantee you these people do not go down easy. They're not just going to go and say, yeah, I'm guilty, lock me up, sir. They're going to try and state their case and, get their narrative and their ideology out there in the public eye. They probably know they're going to go to prison, but they want to be loud about it. They want to draw a lot of eyes to them in the process. So they're going to use this opportunity, I think, a trial, to, get their narrative out, get their ideology out, let everybody know why they did what they did, hoping that there's other like-minded people out there or on a jury who will understand, I guess. And I just don't think that that's going to be the best move for them, but I wish them all the luck on that, because once again, I'm not praying for them, so they're going to need it, because my prayers are powerful. You wish I was praying for you, God's misfits. Anyways, that's all we got for now. But before we go, let us do Stephanie's Small Business Showcase, because I know I forgot last time, and I feel so bad about it. Okay, so today's small business comes to us from Cindy Cassidy. She runs an Etsy shop called WoodHaveSaid. WoodHaveSaid. WOOD. WoodHaveSaid. That is so clever. Like, when I read it for the first time, I just giggled. Nev can give you complete confirmation of that, because it was so clever. WoodHaveSaid.com. I used to have an Etsy shop where I did wood burning. It was called A Song of Wood and Fire. And I did wood burning, and I did things like Cindy Cassidy does here. So I'm so pumped about this. She says, I own and run an Etsy shop that does custom laser engraving. What makes my shop unique to many other engraving shops? ? I'm glad you asked, Cindy. Please tell us. She says, I specialize in engraving handwritten notes, recipes, drawings, photographs of loved ones living or passed on. My cutting boards with a loved one's handwritten recipe engraved into them are the perfect Mother's Day or remembrance gift to display all year round. What better gift for a father than a photo frame with a cute drawing or little message written just for them from their little ones? I can also engrave on metal jewelry, pennies, and other unique and fun items to get those special notes out of the drawer and surround you with the love they were intended to. Oh my God, this is like, you're a good salesperson. Like, do you need a marketing job? Get those special notes out of the drawer and surround you with the love they were intended to. It's a great tagline, Cindy. I'm impressed. So I'm really impressed with her shop too, WoodHaveSaid. The cutting boards. The cutting board idea with so let's say your mom had a special recipe for coffee cake. I love coffee cake. I wish I had some. You could put on this cutting board her handwritten recipe. That is so sweet. That is so sweet. There's also jewelry here that's engraved, which is beautiful. Now there's a handwritten necklace that's custom laser engraved, and it has a picture that clearly a child drew, and it shows like a stick figure mom and a stick figure kid, and it's so cute. They have laser engraved spoons, and it says dad's favorite tool on it. How cute is that? These picture frames are cute. Like Cindy was saying, there's engraved handwriting frames. So it's a picture of 3 kids. And then on the side, it says, a sweet little message in a kid's handwriting, which is so adorable. There's a wall hanging, which looks a little bit larger. And it says that you can put a loved one's handwritten message on it. So there's a picture of a man. And then next to it, it looks like a handwritten letter. This is very sweet. This is a really, really good idea. Like, these aren't even my loved ones. And these aren't even their words to me, and I'm getting like a little choked up here because it's just so sweet and such a good idea. And also, yes, perfect for Mother's Day, perfect for Father's Day, just really cute. So go check out WoodHaveSaid on Etsy. There's also a website. I'm going to link everything below. Go tell Cindy that she's an amazing salesperson and clearly has a gift, not only for creating beautiful, sentimental items, but for making people want to buy them, because she made me want to buy them. Get the notes out of the drawer and surround you with love like they're intended to. I can't even. You got to put that on here somewhere, by the way. Right where it says WoodHaveSaid, above that, in like what looks like a laser engraved print, you should write that, Cindy. Okay, put it on your website. I think it would be a great idea. Anyways, that's all I have for today. So like the video if you liked it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will be back very soon. I have another Coffee and Crime Time coming for you and a part 3 to the Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrandt saga, because you all asked for it. You wanted it. And so we're going to do it. There's more. There's so much more. More stuff just came out yesterday, actually, because I have a Google alert and it popped up. So I've got a lot to put together for a 3rd video. But until then, stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe. I'll see you very, very soon. I love you so much. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. Oh, this feelings I bury, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's killing you slowly, and so you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. Being played from my face, don't bleed. Got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. Lord knows it's been a rough week. Yeah, I'm channeling my